Welcome to Exceptionally Speaking, the podcast where we explore how to better understand and support exceptional learners. I'm Dr. Meryl, and each week I sit down with dedicated educators, parents, and advocates to share real strategies, inspiring stories, and moments of hope. If you're enjoying these conversations or learning something new, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Today, I'm joined by Simon Wilson, a special education teacher, school counselor, life coach, and mental health advocate. Simon's work is rooted in both personal experience and professional expertise, with a background in psychology and over a decade of supporting students in public education. His journey began as a child, struggling silently with anxiety and depression, experiences that would later shape his purpose and approach as both an educator and a parent. In this episode, Simon and I talk about the emotional lives of children, like gifted students navigating anxiety, and the importance of integrating emotional well-being into education. We explore how empathy, open communication, and self-understanding can transform not only how children learn, but how they see themselves. We also discuss the powerful new children's book Simon co-authored with his partner, Learning to Love Your Monster, which helps kids better understand their feelings and gives families and educators tools to support them with compassion. You can find more information about Simon and all our guests at hex24press.com. Please enjoy Exceptionally Speaking with Simon Wilson. Hey, Simon, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being on Exceptionally Speaking today.
Meryl, thank you for having me. Glad to be here. It's incredible.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So I am really interested in how you got into education, what you're doing today, and then I'd love to jump in more about your book. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about your journey on how you got into working in public education.
Absolutely. It's been such a big journey. Sometimes don't know where to start. I failed high school. I was dyslexic, high anxiety, depression. Education was not my thing. So when I left education, I kind of went on a massive journey. But one thing I was always interested in was mental emotional health because, I've struggled. And so I wanted to know what's wrong. Why am I feeling these things? Why am I thinking these things? So that delved into the massive journey there. So about 11 years ago, I married my wife, who's an American, who's been in education over 20 years. And so I moved to the US. I didn't move to the UK at one point, but currently at the US. And I'd sold my business and I was looking for opportunities in my life. So initially I looked at life coaching. It was great, had really good success, but I couldn't make it successful for me. And so then I did a couple years as a para and I worked in a DCD room, like severe profound, and I had the most amazing time. I utilized my skills I developed throughout the years, and the kids that I worked with just excelled. They did it extremely well, and they met all the goals and exceeded them. And everyone around me going, "You got to do something with this. You got to come to education and stuff like that." So it worked well with me because I like the vacation time. Coming from New Zealand, I'm used to minimum 20, 25 days vacation, hot PTO. And initially thought psychology would have been my route, but it's hard to find a company that will provide that amount of PTO. So I was good with kids. I love psychology. So I initially went for a school counseling degree. So I pursued a master's in school counseling, and going from failing high school, I passed with a 3.87 GPA. So I was pretty proud of myself. And so I did 2 years as a school counselor, and then the opportunity came with a better district to be a special education teacher. That's kind of where I'm at. So right now as a DCD, I'm mild to moderate. And this will be my third year coming.
Okay, and tell the listeners what DCD stands for.
Yeah, development cognitive delay. So they could be struggling with autism. They could struggle with physical impairment stuff or other disabilities that affect their ability to be successful in school without the help.
Okay, great.
Obviously.
And does the work you do now, I'm just interested in the special education role, are you mainly pulling groups and meeting with students, or are you pushing into the classroom, or what does that look like on a day-to-day basis for you?
Depending on the need of the student. In the past year, probably about 80% of my students would get a individualized support in a classroom catered for them. So they would be in the class in my resource room for about 70% of the day, 60 to 70% of the day, and then the rest of the day they'll be with the social studies, science, and things like FIAD or choir, where probably about 10 to 20% of my students were with me only 10% of the day, one class.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just interested. It just looks different across states. And remind me what state you're in right now?
Yeah, Minnesota.
Minnesota. That's right.
Gone from New Zealand to Minnesota, so it's a great transfer.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're doing the work. It's really important. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering how your book idea, you and your partner came together and thought about what was needed in the classroom or what was not being served for our students. How did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So my philosophy, it kind of came about when I was in school counseling. My philosophy in education is social emotional gets in the way of academics a lot. And so it's kind of like you build that foundation of acceptance and understanding and being okay with who you are. And you build that foundation and academics follow. Okay. That was my journey. Because of my social emotional struggles and my lack of understanding, I failed high school. And when I finally learned the skills that I needed, I was able to succeed in a master's classroom. So when I was in the school counseling, I had students will come in with anxiety and I would teach them the concepts of inner child and having empathy for that inner child, learning quite often that inner child has this really strong voice, really angry voice. And so I would share that, and that voice isn't, yes, it sounds really bad, but it's something that they've learned. But really, that voice is probably scared and needing a bit of empathy, maybe some love and compassion. And so we strategize to actually meet those needs for love and acceptance. So here I was talking to a student who was a straight A student, but she struggled with anxiety and she had also high trauma in her life. And so a lot of her fear about getting bad grades would come out like a really bad monster in herself. So she really pushed herself really hard. And so I was sharing her about that internal voice and how it can be really aggressive. And so she turned around to me and said, boy, turned to me and said, yeah, I know that voice. I call it my inner troll. And I was like, well, that's
Oh,
really neat way to put it. So anyway, so I think later on that year, my wife and I was on a road trip and we happened to go into Colorado on the road trip as well. And we were like, man, we
nice
gotta,
choice.
yeah, right. We kind of like, we're just talking about writing children's book up. It's just something that I've wanted for a long time because my anxiety started when I was young. Like I remember 5, 6 years old having suicidal ideation. I was a young kid and I was just like, wish I had the tools that I learned in my 30s, what I had as a kid. So I kind of brought up the story of my student, and my wife and I looked at us like, why don't we have a book about a monster, kind of learning to love your monster? And that's kind of how the book came about. Yeah. So that's kind of the journey of how we came about with the book.
Great. So I'm wondering what you've seen in your time in public education as like the way to approach anxiety mitigation with students and how that's different with what shows up in your book.
Yeah, what I've seen a lot, unfortunately, it's a lot of the looking at the symptoms. Anxiety, they deal with the initial symptoms. You look, which is nothing wrong about it, right? You kind of look at the calming, the breathing, the feeling, the tapping of the fingers, and you bring them down. And quite often, the education system, it's like, well, we don't have time to give you the skills. Once you calm down, you got to get back to class. You don't want to miss out on education. Where I've kind of like, when my philosophy was, is like, yes, you bring them to a place where they can understand, they can learn and grow, but also give them the skills to deal with anxiety in the future. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And that's one thing I like being in special education. I'm in a classroom. On my caseload is about 14 students. And, at times there is high emotions for some of the kids, whether they're struggling with something, whether it's academics or personal or something really big happen at home. I actually have the ability, because we have some support staff, to be able to connect with the students and talk about it. I mean, I wish there wasn't as much paperwork, but I do get a lot of the time to have that one-on-one kind of skill training around that anxiety.
It sounds like, from what you're saying, mitigating anxiety in students has really been focused on more symptomatic. What are your symptoms right now? How can we make those go away essentially in the
Hmm.
moment, but not
Hmm.
really digging deeper into how do we look at really addressing this long term? How do we get strategies that address, like you're talking about, the inner child, really that ongoing
Mhm.
voice that is there? So, what advice would you have to any parents who are dealing with their own child who is struggling with anxiety? Outside of course, go buy this book and read it with your child, but what advice would you have
Yeah.
for them as they are going through this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. There's so much I could give. We actually put a whole page in our book just for what is called empathy hacks. Quite often, big emotions is only the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of strategies to dealing what's going on within them. We've found quite often is like, first of all, have they slept well? Are they tired? Have they eaten? My kid was allergic to red dye 40. Unfortunately, we put this correlation together that whenever she had a red dye 40, she had high emotions and stuff like that. Or quite often when we actually sat down and understood their emotions, she was fearful or she would be able to, she was dealing with a concept that she didn't know how to deal with. And quite often kids struggle with their communication skills. And a lot of the frustrations is due to the lack of communication. So for parents, it's important to really look past the big emotions and use their imagination. We had to do a lot of imagination thinking for our kid, especially when they have the big emotions. And you know what? Sometimes it was hard. I'm not going to lie. We've had some really tough nights. But when you sit down and try to understand what they're feeling, right? Connect the feeling and then what they're needing. And quite often when you connect to what they're needing, the solution appears. But getting there is a massive challenge. Quite often we hear this well, I guess as a parent, we like to fix, right? So we got the big emotion from the child, and sometimes we think it's something to do with me. Sometimes we think I've done something wrong or we need to fix it. As I see, we need to fix it. And sometimes one of my big quotes from my mentor, Marshall Rosenberg, is being okay or learning to enjoy the pain. And he uses it in the sense of counseling, being okay as a counselor with the pain. But sometimes when we see a kid in pain, especially emotionally, we are so allergic to it that we want to fix it. And being okay with that pain and know that they're just trying to communicate something deeper that we are yet to know. Okay, so kids got a different set of imagination than us. And so sometimes it comes to the most simplest things, but what's simple to us can be massive to them. So I don't know. That was a bit of a word scramble there, but it's just a big topic for me that I love so much.
I think that mirrors what you said around what's happening in our public school system around let's just jump to how do we fix the symptoms immediately. And I think as
Hmm.
parents, like you're saying, we care so much. We see our kids in pain. We want them to feel better. And so maybe we jump to how do we just get them to feel better in that moment versus really pausing and trying to understand more on truly, like you're saying, what they're feeling, maybe what trying to help them name what the feeling is when they're ready to talk
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
And I wonder what your thoughts are on, empathy for self as parents and what role that plays in being able to help our students with anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was young being dyslexic. I'm dyslexic as heck. And so when you're dyslexic, you're bound to make mistakes. You drop things. Yeah, there's certain things that just comes with that struggle. And I remember dropping a bowl and my mum just like went berserk over me. And I'm like, it was a bowl. It made a lot of noises. It's okay. Where she was, get out my kitchen now. So it was a great little story. But I learned that she was dyslexic and she didn't know that she was dyslexic
Mm,
and her family was extremely hard on her, had high expectation. She wasn't allowed to make a mess. So make a mistake. And she was a big family of 8 and she had to parent her little kids because the parents were farmers. So what I understood from that was she didn't see me as I was. She saw me as who she was. And quite often our struggle is not what our kid is doing, it's how we see ourselves through the kid. And if we have high expectations for ourselves, or if we have been taught that we're not allowed to have pain, we're not allowed to have emotions, we can transfer that onto our kids. And so therefore having empathy for ourselves, listening to our little monster telling us what we should do, quite often the shoulds never should on yourself. is a big one. Comparisons. We as parents become very attuned to how other kids and families work, or we see the TV, and there's a lot of comparisons, and we want to compare it. So emotion, and quite often big emotions doesn't fit in there. So quite often empathy for the kid also comes with having empathy with ourselves and being able to go on that journey of what is what is it about my beliefs or understanding that's making me allergic to their emotions or wanting to fix them? So, yeah, so it's very much a journey for parents, and it changes every few couple of years once you kind of sort out, the first couple of years of life with having kids, and then the next 2 years are completely different, and they keep us on a journey.
Yes, I know that's right. As a parent, as soon as you get comfortable in routines and age, it's like, okay, here we go. We're on to the next one. So it's just the nature of it. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So a little bit more about the book, which is called Learning to Love Your Monster.
Mhm.
What's a good age range for this, and how do you see this being used? Is this home in the classroom? There it is. Yeah, looks
Yeah,
great.
there it is. Yeah, it's excellent. One thing we love about it is just the drawings on it that we lucked out with this guy from Venezuela, Cesar Lista. So, and his drawings are phenomenal. The colors he's used is vibrant. It's so good. So we wrote it towards a first grade reading level, and so which was extremely challenging because we were taking big concepts and therapeutic skills and psychology aspects and all kinds, and just brought it into this children's book. And but the cool thing about this book that we've done, it's very real. It's very real. We didn't tone down those aspects of the kid where she's calling herself dumb or stupid, and not she's not good enough. I'm not fast enough. And these are things that are real language that kids with these monsters have. And so we didn't choose to be subtle with it. We chose to be loud and proud about it because that's real. And so with this book, it's become quite a fascinating book in the sense of the types of response that we've had from different people of different age groups. We've had a whole lot of pre-orders. We did a Kickstarter and sent them out. And so we had one lady go, "This book was amazing. My 6-year-old was just absolute loved it, because her mother was in the hospital all year last year with anxiety. And so when she read it, she absolutely loved it. And so she couldn't put it down, because she could connect. She could hear the things that she learned from her parents, and she could hear her mom through this book as well. So we've had essentially starts at 5, 6-year-old. My kid, we first reading it to her was 5 years old, and she liked it. It was cute pictures. We read to her kindergarten class this year, and they all loved it. So it's been good. But then we've had my assistant principal took it home. He bought the book on the basis that he was going to give it to his niece or nephew. I remember. And they decided to read it. He's got an eighth grader, and he's got I think, sixth grader. And they read it, and the sixth grader loved it. And they've read it, I think last time we talked to them about 4 or 5 times, and they haven't been able to go of it. So, which is really neat, really unexpected. And so we got that massive age group between kids. And then we shared with a psychologist, counselor, about the book. She's a clinical director in a local psychologist, and she fell in love with it. She's reading it to her sixth, seventh grade kid, and they love it. She's brought it into her counseling practice, and the counseling practice was it worked a treat in that in there. They just read the book and go, what did you think? And that open up massive conversations. So I'm going on and on, but there's a couple more I want to share. There was one a teacher. He deals with kind of after school in the early 20s, the kids who struggles. And so he brought it to their class, and they loved it as well. And then when we first started writing it, we had I think he must be in his 30s. He read it and he loved it for himself. So yeah, so it's huge range of people who loved it. I think just because it's a children's book, I mean, my whole goal is to give the skills for 5 to 6-year-olds to begin with. But I think these skills in this
Hmm.
book really goes all the way to adults and older grandparents. It doesn't matter, because these skills in here changed my life, and it's helped change many people's life that I've counseled and helped.
Sounds like it's been really relatable and people can see themselves regardless of the age, but see themselves in the characters and in the story too. So I'm really excited to get
Yeah.
it and read it with my child who's going to be a seventh grader, and I think she will enjoy it as well. And I'm also thinking about even our social workers and school counselors and gifted teachers and special education teachers that run small groups that are really focused on social emotional learning, and that this could be a
Yeah.
really excellent tool for them to use in small groups as well.
Absolutely. That's one goal with actually my wife is starting to develop. She's nearly finished a 5-day curriculum for the book. So teachers, it'd be great for teachers. Small groups is perfect for small groups. And ultimately, it's all about emotional intelligence. And yeah, if you're able to bring this to groups, it's got lots of great conversational pieces from it.
That's great. That's great to hear that there's a curriculum added addition to this book, because I think people will really catch on. It's just such a huge need right now. I know you see it too, as anxiety in students is just becomes more evident. And like you're saying, if we don't address the social emotional needs of our students, it's very hard for them to attend to their academic work. It's imperative that we really take the steps to do that. So I know the website is learningtoloveyourmonster.com. That's where people can find out more about it. Is there anything else that we left out or that you want to share for our listeners?
Yeah, it's also available on Amazon. We managed to do that just the other day, which is great. But our website has a lot of description on what it's about. We've got also a journal that goes with it. That's one thing that we were purposeful. We've got a journal called Learning to Love the Monster, the journal. And it's not just a blank page of lines. It's actually purposeful. It's about asking questions. So naming the situation. I did this actually with my 6-year-old the other day. So she likes to go a certain way home from school, right? And of course, she didn't communicate it. So I decided I just wanted to get home. Her way was a lot longer. And so she blew up. She was like, Dad, screamed at me. I was like, why don't we use this? So anyway, so the situation was we didn't go the way that she wanted. And she did it perfect because there's no judgments. It was just plainly making a statement. Quite often when we describe something, we are full of judgments. And so, which gets in the way of us resolving the situation. So she described the situation extremely well. And the next one is connecting to feelings. And her feeling was kind of sad about it. Okay, which is great. And then her need was she struggled with that. So I helped her, and her need was to be heard or understood. And then the next question on this journal is how can I love my monster? Or, let's work on a strategy to meet that need for love. And she came about it herself. She was like, I could ask you next time instead of just getting upset. And so my wife and I were just absolutely blown away with that comment. And sure enough, the next day we're coming home. She goes, Daddy, can we go this way? I was like, absolutely. So yeah, so that journal's a treat as well that goes with it. Kind of pairs with one. So and the curriculum is coming. If you're interested in any of your listeners interested in us to be reading or teaching in the class or something, just let us know. We're in Minnesota, of course, but we can do virtual. And so obviously we're teachers, so it's going to be a challenge to coincide and work it out. We got really good administration that likes to work with us, so which is really neat.
That's great. That's great. And I love the journal
Mhm.
aspect that really gives a tool for the adults that are buying this book and sharing it with students and with their children to not just stop with the book, but to really start thinking through how do you love your monster? Let's have these conversations. And I love how your child was able to really own that next step or that learning from that and take it and use it immediately. So I think that's a great success.
Yeah.
So,
So
everyone, please check out Learning to Love Your Monster. And as we wrap up, Simon, I would love to just know what's bringing you hope right now in public education or with school psychology or special education. What's bringing you hope right now?
like how you said, like the combination of psychology of learning and education is coming together. That excites me a lot. And there's been a disconnect where we got to get in the facts and learning equations and stuff like that, where there's more and more understanding of learning and psychology coming in it and producing a lot of critical thinking. Because if I can link it to emotion, big emotions, quite often it's just they're bad, that's not good. Where that's not the case. That's one thing I like about the book. We don't push away the book, their negative emotions. We're actually saying, let's actually reason. Let's be critical thinking about it. And so that's one thing, actually, I know for Minnesota, anywhere where we're at, that's a big thing that's happening. So, which is really neat. So that's given me a lot of hope.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Well, I am happy to know you, Simon. Good luck with your future work, and I hope everything is more successful than you could imagine. I think this is really impactful for our students. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks, Meryl. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
This episode of Exceptionally Speaking is brought to you by Hex 24 Press, where education meets imagination. I founded Hex 24 Press in 2024 to uplift educator voices and provide a publishing home for myself and other educators to bring our work into the world. You can find more information about today's guests, including links to their resources and services, at hex24press.com. Thank you for supporting educators, independent creators, and small business. We're so glad you're here.